is the CEO for SDG for Africa. When his time comes, he'll introduce himself. Before that, I just want to take you through the program for the week. We are starting today on the 9th, all the way until the 14th. And for today, we'll be focusing on the global peace, which is the topic for today. We have different topics for every day, so I actually encourage you to attend so that you do not miss out. There are other panelists as well on board. I think Joe will introduce them when Joe comes. He'll also introduce them. Before that, I just want to share a few housekeeping rules. It's just a kind request that if you are not talking, we kindly mute our mic. When you want to say something or when you want to give input, we can raise our hands, unmute, and then talk. Because sometimes if we leave our mic not muted, there is a lot of background noise. So it's a humble request that we mute our mic. When you want to talk, you raise your hand, then you can be able to unmute and talk. And also, we have the chat box. At the end of the session, there'll be a session of question and answer. So I highly encourage each one and every one of us who has a question to type on the chat box. I'll be able to capture the questions and we'll address them at the end of the session. We are a bit late with our program, though we were intending to take up 2 hours. We were scheduled to start at 5 to 5:05. That was supposed to be the opening of the International Youth Dialogue. Then from 5:05 to 5:20 is time for Africa for SDGs. From 5:20 to 6, it was the speaker, our speaker is Joe Bonga. Then we'll also have breakout sessions. I think the host will guide us on the breakout sessions that will be where we'll be having discussions, of which we'll later present whatever we'll discuss in our different breakout sessions. After that, the speaker will continue. That will be from 6:10 to 6:35. Then from 6:35 to 7 p.m., we'll be doing the questions and addressing feedback to the questions that you have. I'll start off by just giving a brief introduction before we welcome our speaker. I'm sure you're wondering, when you talk about peace, what does peace mean? What is this global peace? Most of us are very familiar. When you listen to radio, when you listen to TV, when you listen to Sky News, CNN, we see there's a lot of wars going on. So more than any time in history, our world has been engaged in conflicts. Even here in Kenya, we see conflict is not something new. All the way from UK, USA, war in Afghanistan, Iraq, we have all been affected by wars. Even other African nations, we have all been affected by wars. We see that this is a fragile landscape because in most parts of the world, there's actually war. Even if it's not serious war, there's also even tribalic wars at the community levels, even something that is happening now in Kenya. It's not 100% peaceful. There are places where we have clashes, which is also a sort of war. There are quite a number of causes of uncertainty of peace, which causes war. They range from poverty and economic inequality. Even technology these days actually attributes to war. There's also religion, governance, and politics. Our speaker will explore along those lines. When we look around on the policy paper, especially on the UN Security Council, according to the UN Population Fund, there are about 1.8 billion people between 10 to 24 years who are the youth, of which 600 live in conflict zones. That's a high number, especially for us to live in conflict zones. In this case, the demographic argument is probably one of the most powerful and compelling reasons that really identifies the role of the youth in building peace. I think our discussion will be focusing on the role of the youth in building peace. This is because the youth actually take a higher percentage of the population. The most population is attributed by the youth. And it's actually time to change that the youth are the future leaders, or the leaders for tomorrow, or the solutions for tomorrow, to the youth being the present change makers. So as the youth, we really have a big role to make change, to create peace, not in future, but now. So it's the role of the youth to make present change at the moment. With that brief introduction, I would like to welcome our speaker, who will introduce himself in depth. Our speaker, Mr. Joseph Bonga, kindly, karibu sana. Please take it up from there.
Thanks. It's very dark in here. I hope I'm visible enough. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. My name has been introduced as Joe Bonga, and I'm the director for Africa for SDGs. And we are very happy to be part of today, especially this week means a lot to us because the young people have an opportunity to be celebrated not only as being young people, but also as contributors of the greater good for this planet. With me will be the head of department for education for sustainable development at the Kenya Education Management Institute, and together we're going to explore the aspects of youth, peace, and education. And maybe I'll just introduce, and then I will let her introduce herself later. But today we're just looking at some aspects of peace and global peace. And I think as Anna has introduced it, it's a very important aspect. Actually, if there was no peace, there wouldn't be anything that we are doing today that would exist. And I think peace is one of the things that has been taken for granted by us Kenyans because we've never been in any war. But if you look at countries like Sierra Leone that has fought, they have been having a war for 10 years. If you look at Liberia, countries that have been in war, then these countries really, they understand the principles of peace. And if you talk about peace as a subject of discussion, these people present a very different aspect of it. I was also very inspired a few weeks ago when we talked about mental health, and we realized that there is also a lot of issues to do with peace that is not necessarily the presence of active and aggressive conflict, but what we may call maybe cold peace or something like that. But just to give you a reminder, the United Nations, the Security Council Resolution 2250, which was passed in 2015, the important thing that we must understand with that passage is the principles that identify the 5 key pillars, and those pillars are very important for us because one of the those pillars would create a platform for our engagement, especially as young people. These pillars were made so that young people can be more active and more engaged. And one of them is participation. And then this was just to make sure everybody can participate. And I know that participation in itself is also a very complex subject. But then there is also aspects of protection, prevention, partnerships, partnerships and disengagement, and then reintegration. So these 5 pillars are very key when we are looking at the resolution 2250. The resolution 2250 was to just kind of ask the member states to give a greater voice in decision-making processes, both at the local level, national, regional, and international, for the young people, so that we consider coming up with mechanisms that will enable young people to participate more meaningfully in peace processes. So the resolution 2250 took into consideration that young people play a critical role, which is very imperative towards a peaceful coexistence in the globe and the world today. But then it is not just existing. It's not just existing to bring young people into participation, but also to make sure that we can realize meaningful participation in the processes. Now, young people, the population for young people is immense. I think globally, now in Africa, we are having quite a number of, like we have, I think, 266 million or something like that. That is in the census of 2015. And this means that there's a projection by 2030 that the African youth population is going to increase by 42%. Now, if you think of that, then that's either a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how we look at it. But then if you look at it in the context of peace, then it means that we must increase young people's participation for a peaceful coexistence. And this means that we have to make sure that we're working very hard to see that the systems that we put in place are sustainable. These systems can sustain the participation of young people for a while. And then we look at also the political and the financial frameworks, because then these political and financial frameworks will also determine the impact, or let me say the impact of youthful engagement. So without a political goodwill, without a proper financial structure within which young people can participate, then of course it's not gonna be very easy for young people to engage. And then, of course, we are looking into aspects to do with technical and logistical support. That, again, if we are thinking of young people engaging more in United Nations Resolution 2250, then we have to be thinking, do we have the technical capacity? Do we have the right logistical support? And how can the young people come in? Because then this must be in consideration to the fact that we are taking into account that the needs for participation of young people in peace efforts is imperative, especially in conflict and post-conflict situations. So this means that everything must be relevant to everything that young people are engaging in. So maybe somebody told me today, as I was talking to someone, he was asking me about this meeting, and he told me, I think Africa understands more about conflict, and so do they understand more about peace building? Because when we talk about peace, and this is something that most people in the intellectual levels argue a lot about, they are like, does Africa need a theoretical forum for peace discussions, or does Africa needs a very constructive, practical peace building processes that brings young people? So when you talk about youthful engaging young people, are you talking about engaging young people to talk about peace as peace, or are you engaging them to talk about peace as peace builders? Because the reason why I respect that feedback from my friends from other continents is because they assume that the context within which we exist already undermines the principles of peace, meaning that either Africa is at war fighting, or Africa is at war fighting something else. And this could be, we are fighting, right now we are fighting over corona resources. I mean, you can imagine, we are fighting because we know there is money, but we don't know who took this money, or maybe we know who took this money, but we don't know even how to engage in that sense. And then we have education systems. We have budgets that have gone to the Ministry of Education, and children are not in school. We don't know how is that going to play out. And then we have things to do with malnutrition. We have things to do with a lot of stuff. And then, so it really presents a situation where when we start talking about peace, we don't have to assume that peace is just the phrase. Peace is to be discussed in the presence or in the context of conflicts. But then we have what we call the negative peace and the positive peace, being negative peace being the absence of violence or fear of violence. And then the positive peace is the attitudes, the institutions, and the structures that create and sustain peaceful societies. So then that brings the argument, if negative peace is the absence of violence or fear of violence, and then you compare the negative peace with positive peace, in a classroom where I would be engaging myself in the discussions of peace, I would be wondering, do we really have positive peace? because positive peace is the attitudes and the institutions that have been created, structures that are functional, and these structures and attitudes and institutions, they create and sustain peaceful societies. Then, of course, we are asking ourselves, are we peaceful in reality, or are we trying to be peaceful? Then there is the aspect of what I call the trichotomy of peace, which is the internal peace, the eternal peace, and the external peace. Now, I know we have a lot of work going on the eternal peace, where our spiritual leaders are bringing us to a point of hope, that we need to have hope beyond just what we are going through or what's going on inside us, so that we can see life beyond the life that we are living in. So when believers out there, you know that you have eternal peace when you are a believer in your God. But then we have internal peace, and then we have external peace. And I've been wondering, how many times have I been in a situation where I am not guaranteed of the internal peace? Am I guaranteed that I'm peaceful enough to create a system that can sustain progressive development? Then, of course, there is that internal peace. And I'm just trying to say this so that we set ourselves on the personal agenda for peace. And then there is the external peace. And the external peace now is how we feel. Do we feel safe around us? Do we feel safe around the neighborhoods that we are at? So if you look at global peace, I would say global peace would really start from the peace within you, that of course you are having that peace, and then the peace that transcends beyond you into your environment, that you are able to be sure that even if you are peaceful within, then outside you're also peaceful. So then that could present a lot of arguments to that. But then again, that before I go into just asking as a question, maybe we should realize that that peace, both, it won't exist without a well-functioning government. So when we're talking about the International Youth Day, we have to ask ourselves, are we having governments that are functional, systems that are functioning well enough that we can be sure that we can have sustained peace? Then if we are coming in as young people, at what level are we coming in terms of the government, the functionality of the government, to say, yes, we are interested to participate? Because remember, United Nations Resolution 2250 wants young people to be engaged more and more in the aspects of peace. And so we need to be thinking, if you are an IR student, of course, this is an area of major interest. If you are an educationalist like my friend Christine and many of us who are working to support educational system, Cardo there and the rest from AI, we need to be asking ourselves, do we have the systems? I love what Charles Cardo always said, how school friendly is your school? And so we can argue that a non-child friendly school does not give the children or the parents the internal peace. So you can imagine your kid is going to school and you're worried this is going to happen, this might happen. Then you know that if the systems of governance are not functioning well, then definitely there will be a lot of things that would happen around us that would not promote either way the kind of peace we want to have. And then that goes into the second one, which is equitable distribution of resources. Already in the government of Kenya, we are fighting over distribution of resources, and we are fighting whether do we go one man, one vote, or do we go, what happens? So everybody's worried, oh, my constituency is going to lose, my county is going to lose if we adopt this system. And we're almost at a standstill. But then have you thought of it, how it's going to play out in the peaceful coexistence of the people of this beloved country, Kenya? So assuming there are people out there, because of lack of equitable distribution of resources, they feel left out. And so for them to survive, they have to raid another group of people and take their cows or attack their livelihoods. Then what happens? Then meaning that resources becomes a big problem when you are talking about peace. So as a young person, I'm just setting the stage for our discussion. And I know my colleague is going to set further in terms of education. But I want you to think of it. If you are poor, if you have no food and you can't have that much of hope, then you won't even feel like you should preserve the peace of the other person if the only way for you to survive is to make sure that you interrupt the processes of production on the other side. And what happens is the other side might not take it easy and they might revenge. And it is those factors that now start leading us into a context that does not really support peace. And then, of course, that will affect education and many things, which I think Christine would highlight. But then again, another third factor that I wanted to play in as we call upon the young people to participate in the United Nations Security Council resolution is to see how is the free flow of information? Is information flowing? Because that's also an issue that can present, can interrupt the process of peace within our country or our globe. If free flow of information, if the flow of information is not free, if we cannot access information, if we don't know what's going on really around us, and we don't know why it's going on. I mean, right now we are hungry because we are very, very hungry because, or we are very angry because we don't know where the money for Corona is gone. We just told there are not enough beds. And so if you are sick, you can't have beds and money is going out there and you don't know that nobody is giving you information of how this money is used. So when there is no free flow of information, then participation in peace can take a very negative turn. And so those are things I would love us to engage in our mind as we are looking today into this and in our breakout sessions. Then of course there is the good relations with our neighbors. And this is an element I'm presenting not because of my diplomatic, my love for diplomacy, but again, I'm just thinking if Kenya Airways wants to fly to Tanzania and Tanzania cannot allow them in, then that's a problem. And then our cows graze to Tanzania and then Tanzanians take these cows and then sell them, then that's a problem. So the relationships we have with our neighbors can stimulate conflicts, catalyze conflict, promote peace or lack of it thereof. So it's very important for us to think as we are engaging in this stuff called peace, have we looked at all these elements and then are we sure that, yeah, we're in a position where we can sustain peace? Because as young people, we shouldn't look for peace for today. We should be thinking about peace that we can sustain not only for today, for us, but even for our generations that are coming, because that's when we talk about sustainable peace. It is peace that is not, it's just coming up with structure that does not only benefit us, but also benefits those who come after us. And these structures should be able to make production and consumption exist at a point where we don't have to interrupt one the other in order to have the other. So good relations with our neighbors is very, very important. How are we engaging with young people? How are we engaging with young people in an ecosystem that is, imagine like right now, I tried to get a job in Tanzania. It won't be easy because they say Kenyans will take over their jobs and this and that. And then we have people coming from Rwanda and Burundi, and we say, oh, those degrees are not good enough. We Kenyans, we want something good enough. And then somebody comes with some degree in some lousy college in the UK, and we're like, yay, he studied in the UK. So those kind of things becomes very, very important for us to think, how long will young people be quiet? I was looking at the funding ecosystem for startups, and we realized that 8 out of 10 startups are run by white people from UK and USA. And the other people, Kenyans, try to bring their good ideas and nobody wants to fund them. And so it also presents with me of a fear of what will happen when people stand to rise up and say, well, enough is enough, how long? Because then what plays in your mind is the aspect of colonization,
Am I the only one who cannot hear Joe?
We seem to have lost him. Sorry for that. It's a technical hitch.
We seem to have lost Joe.
Yeah, the technical hitch.
Maybe as Joe prepares to come back, allow me to continue.
Okay, Christine, welcome.
Yeah, because we are actually talking about the same thing. It's good that he has introduced us to sustainable peace. Now, when we come to education, what is the role of education in promoting peace? We realize that education is very key when it comes to promoting peace. For instance, when we talk about education and peace, education builds empathy and tolerance. The Human Rights Conventions declare that education must prepare a child to be responsible in life and to be effective in participating in a free society in a spirit of understanding, peace, tolerance, equality, and compatibility. Now, if we look at what education is doing at the moment, for instance, in Kenya, we have the competency-based curriculum where we are talking about values. Now, the aspect of values is actually one way of promoting peace because in that sense, education cultivates respect. In the classroom, students learn to respect their teachers and their peers. The fact that the learners are told to wait for the other to speak first before they can speak. That is one way of promoting peace, that they don't interrupt when somebody is speaking. And another way that education promotes peace is the fact that education increases the aspect of reducing poverty, in the sense that when people are comfortable, when people are educated, we have the hope that when somebody has gone through school, somehow they get to be cultured in such a way that they learn to live with others and they learn to respect. Education can build communication skills. In the classroom, students are often asked to speak, maybe in the English and Kiswahili lessons. They're asked to read aloud as the others listen. So as the learners' communication skills are being developed through education, then in essence, there is that aspect of promoting peace. Now, when we look at the global citizenship education, there is that aspect of peace education. Peace education concentrates on this the essence that love is at the center. It is at the foundation of the character of peace. When many of us grow the qualities of peace through peace education, the global village will be able to grow like a tree of peace. When your actions are motivated by love, your energy is multiplied, accumulated, and the release of this energy allows you to redirect it and use it to create everything that you want to create, including a peaceful environment. When your spirit is your inner point of reference, all the power of love is at your disposal. And you can use this energy creatively, moving forward, providing peace and total evolution. Now, in our schools, we have what we call peace gardens, we have peace corners, we have peace clubs, peace joints, community peace curtains, we have peace boxes. In essence, in education for sustainable development, there are many ways that we are encouraging our schools, for instance, in Kenya, to help the learners understand the importance of peace, why they need to embrace peace, and why they need to live in a peaceful environment. When considering peace education, there are three areas that we usually consider: the aspect of diversity, that we are all created differently, and we have to accept to live with one another in the society, and in the process, we will be living with harmony. So the next area is that one of harmony. If we embrace others, then we will have harmony. And how can we have harmony? Harmony by cooperation and coexistence, learning to cooperate and to live with others. Now, nature adapts to changes in the environment and maintains diversity to sustain life. Now, that is when we are talking about diversity. And therefore, diverse forms of life coexist in harmony. So when we have our learners in schools, in the universities, in colleges, wherever they are, the fact that they are able to sit in a class and listen to one tutor or listen to one teacher, listen to one of their own, talking about a certain subject or discussing a certain concept, then they are able to live in harmony. To establish harmony, different people work together and coexist. And therefore, cooperation and coexistence are the starting points of peace among humankind. And that is why we emphasize so much in education that there is nothing like individualization. It's not about me, it's about us. Considering that every person is valuable, I am a valuable person, and know their value and think of themselves as valuable can respect others by knowing their value as well. All creation has their own meaning and value. Even for humans, their existence itself is a value. You yourself, when you look at yourself, you feel like everybody should respect you. Anybody coming close to you should be able to respect you. The same way the person sitting next to you feels the same. And therefore, we need to understand that in education, the aspect of value, valuing one another, is very, very important. And it is the role of every one of us, the educators, as well as the learners, as well as the other stakeholders of education, to know that they have a role and a duty in promoting peace in the society. It is because they should know their role and duty and perform the same faithfully. The reason as to why we all have to learn to live in harmony is to be able to perform our own duties so that we can all feel like we are satisfied, we are peaceful, we are accepted in the society. We all have something to be grateful about. And therefore, this gives us hope, this gives us love, and at the same time, it gives us peace. Order within us, order within the creation of nature, is actually what makes us realize peace. When there is disorder, then there is no peace. That is why in education, yes?
Sorry to cut you short. There's a hand up, I think, from Deborah. I think it's...
All right.
Deborah, your hand is up. Deborah, I can see your hand is up.
Maybe we can finish and then have time for questions later.
Oh, okay, fine. Please, Christine, go ahead. Sorry for that.
Yeah, I was talking about order and peace. So where there is disorder, then there is no peace. For us to bring peace in the society, then we must restore the order of humanity, the order of things, the order of doing things in our learning institutions. That is why we have a timetable of doing things in school. There is a duty rota for the teachers. How do they operate? Who is supposed to take care of what and at what time? So that part of ensuring that in the education system, there is some form of order is one way of promoting peace. We need to understand that disorder was actually from the beginning the cause that disrupted the state of peace. And also understand that the root cause of disorder is greed. The spirit of love is the foundation of peace and that peace begins with the personal change of individuals. That is why in education, we work on the learners, the individual learners. We want the individual learners to understand that it is upon themselves to ensure that they have a peaceful environment. And if they grow up with that kind of understanding, then they will not have the vices like greed that will bring about disorder and eventually cause wars and the other things that Joe has already talked about. No matter how many riches somebody may have, if you lose your life, for example, tonight, you will not be able to use it or to use that well. Just as your life is precious to you, others value their own life. Then peace for all must be achieved and wars must end. We need to look for a way of bringing back order in our learning institutions, even in our own communities, because education does not stop at school. Education goes beyond school. We need to boost the confidence and hope of all the people around us, especially those of us who have gone through school. We need to focus on the fact that education breeds confidence. Confidence breeds hope. Hope breeds peace. When you have hope, then you have peace. So if education breeds confidence, how can we help our learners to be confident? And therefore, the aspect of sustainable peace brings into it the 21st century skills, where now we want our learners to be creative, we want our learners to be imaginative, we want our learners to be inquisitive, we want our learners to be problem solvers. And if they are engaged and they are busy doing something, being innovative, then it is possible to have these learners come out confidently and be able to say no where there is no peace. Education gives us the power, for example, in political involvement, because educated citizens are less likely to stand for government corruption and can spur more government accountability. I keep arguing that those people who are so much into corruption, I believe they are the same people who are too much into stealing exams. That is why we have a problem up to now. I don't know if Joe has come back. I was just trying to come.
Yes, he's back.
Oh, he's back.
And
therefore, there are so many ways. There are so many ways in which education promotes peace, as I have said, and the aspect of love is key. That is why we teach our children, not really teach, we help our children to inculcate the value of love, even as they are growing up. Joe, you can pick up and continue.
Thank you so much, Christine, for that. For me, I think education plays a very key role. So yeah, as I was saying, if the education is not inclusive and sustainable, already right now, especially after Christine's presentation and what I was just laying out, I was just laying out the 9 elements or principles that can help us. And thank you, Christine, for that.
Excuse me, Joe.
I don't let the questions come as far as the education is concerned, or maybe I can just the following. I just talked about well-functioning government, equitable distribution of resources, free flow of information, good.
Hey, Joe.
You seem to have lost Joe again.
I'm sorry, I disappeared.
Joe, are you there?
Okay, let me compliment Joe as we wait for him to come back.
Thank you.
Because we actually don't want to leave any gap.
It's okay. May I have something, Paris?
Somebody wants to ask a question?
Yes.
Yes, please.
This is Stephen Juma, and I'm sorry I joined late, but while I just joined, I had something that I want to comment about on Christine's presentation. Am I allowed to do that?
Okay, maybe you can ask as we wait for Joe.
Okay, Christine said something that dissatisfaction is caused by greed. I am begging to differ with that and say that it's caused by being dissatisfied. And this is the reason. Lack of peace or disorder is not caused by greed. It's caused by a people who are not satisfied by an institution, a system, or the order in which the country is being run. And as a youth collectively, in the past or in the current situation, so many youths are dissatisfied with so many things, not just being jobless or being in a system that discriminates or looks down upon them. And
Sorry.
so my take, and this is to Christine presentation, disorder is not caused by greed mostly, but dissatisfaction. Thank you.
Hi, Stephen.
Hey.
Let me kindly respond to you.
Thank you.
We are still ongoing with the session. I was kindly requesting maybe we reserve the question to the end because we have a session for question and answer.
Okay.
And maybe whatever you're raising might be discussed during the breakout sessions because we also have breakout sessions.
Okay.
So just a kind request that we proceed with Christine as we wait for Joe to come back. And maybe your issues will be addressed. And if not, we can actually address it towards the end, the question and answer session. Is that okay?
That's okay.
Okay, thank you for understanding. Christine, please, you can go ahead with your presentation.
Okay, well, let me just go back to what I had said. I said there is a relationship between peace and order. That is where I began. And then I said the root cause of disorder in the society is actually greed. Now, if you want us to discuss deeper into that, we can do that later, not now. But we all have our own perspectives of looking at the root cause of disorder in the society. But I have my many points of arguing that the root cause of disorder is actually greed. And finally, I concluded by saying the beginning of peace is love. That if you want to have peace, then there must be love. So that is why we are encouraging our learners to inculcate the value of love, loving one another. And as Joe was speaking, he talked about education for sustainable development. What we are doing in the learning institutions is to encourage the learners come up with activities that will engage them together, that will make them work together, and in the process, enjoy the benefits of their work together. As we do that, they are actually practicing love. And how else can they practice this love? We are trying to help the learners inculcate the values that they feel like they lack in themselves. When we come to the environment, a learner maybe plants a tree and labels that tree, the value that they are lacking. For example, if a learner is living with a lot of bitterness, then the learner will label the tree love, or another value like responsibility, so that every day when this child is watering this tree, it's as if they are watering love to grow in them. They are watering respect to grow in them. And therefore, education plays a very big role in promoting peace, generally. I think Joe has come back. Not
Sorry,
yet.
I'm here. My network is bad.
All right.
Forgive my internet. Yeah, so I don't know if there'll be any questions for Christine, because you've really brought it home. I don't know if there's any question. Maybe if we can open it to the others, and then I will just wind up on what I was saying.
Hi, Joe. There are quite a
Yes,
number
hi.
of the raised hands. I think there are questions to or inputs to Christine.
All right.
See Ambrose, his hand is up. Please, Ambrose. Ambrose.
Hello.
Yes, Ambrose, your hand is up. Can you hear us, Ambrose?
It's frozen.
Okay, you can maybe put it on the chat. The other hand is for Paris. Paris, your hand is up.
Okay. So I would like to say thank you for the presentation. It was amazing. I agree with most of the points, though bringing all the points into the actual, like into the real time analysis of what we're going through. I had attended a small seminar where I saw people talking about how the pandemic has had the capability of reversing what people have been working.
Let's mute our microphones if you're not talking. Kindly. Yes, Paris, please go ahead.
Yes, so I was just going through, I happened to have attended a meeting and someone asked us a question at the end of the webinar, and they asked us to think into reality. What has COVID-19 done in terms of reversing what the world has been pushing towards education? You know, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and many people now have to close down schools if at all maybe you're not in an advanced country, which a few of us are lucky to be in, but those that are not fortunate enough cannot have the same benefits that some of us have. So if maybe in your opinion, what do you think we need to do now? Because we have the pandemic, the education system now is like crumbling, and we're talking about it being the essential, being the pillar of peace within, like being the grounding factor of peace within the institutions and the different key players. So what is your opinion about this? How do you think we will forge forward given the issue that's affecting us?
Let me take that, Paris. That's a good question. But in all honesty, I don't know if we have any students of diplomacy. I can see a few of my mentees on diplomacy here. So what I could say is that Corona, actually, if you look at it from that perspective, then Corona has come as a blessing. In a way, of course, that's a very callous statement to make. But I don't mean to sound careless, but this is the only time that the world, apart from what's going on the front of the newspapers, but this is the only one time that the world has really come together, because the world is being affected by a common enemy in this case. This is one of the things that have really leveraged the poor and the rich countries together. This is one of the things that have really exposed the rich countries as well. And it has also really brought out the rot in the most corrupt countries as well. So it has come at a time. If I was working back at the United Nations, then I would also say this has been a good time for the United Nations, because then they've been able to launch the COVID-19 Global Humanitarian Response Plan, which they call the HRP plan. So these have seen them bring all agencies together. They have been able to synergize efforts or synchronize efforts with other countries. We've seen reduced response times. We've seen cases where there has been avoidance of duplications. So we don't have quite a lot of duplicity, like everybody's trying to do the same thing, you know? And then there is also faster and more efficient relief to those who are hardest hit. This is a time when corona patients are like celebrities, unlike when they were malaria patients or they were pneumonia patients. So it's like they're the first. Actually, even if you go with a headache, they must see if you are a corona celebrity first. This is where the news and the tabloids are not sharing all the deaths of Africans. It's not showing all the flights of Africans because everybody's being affected. This is not a disease. I mean, if corona came and then it's only affected Africa, I know the response in the rest of the world would be very different. But this thing, if an African is sick, even if you're white near me, you have to be afraid. If a poor man is sick, the rich man has to be scared. So this has also done. It has also helped in breaking down what we call the breakdown of peace processes, and so it has allowed problems to be seen to work faster. So it has promoted what we call positive peace. In a way, it has promoted positive peace, and then the humanitarian response plan is there so that it can help to address other issues as well, because then corona does not come just as one issue, so it comes and presents many other issues with it. So the local responders will have to be able to be more, can I say, they have like a more international perspective. We are not just talking about the local response in New York. No, we are talking about how can the local responders, because then this is a global pandemic. And then of course it's just minimized impacts. We've seen those happen. So there is global solidarity that has come up very well. There is, of course, there is what we call, how do I call it, personal responsibility, because then everybody feels they have to play a role. I think this is one of the times that I've taken a lot of water. This is one of the times that my hands are more light skinned than any other parts of my body, because we keep on washing them. And you almost feel like if your hand is not washed, you are not even going to feel okay. So personal responsibility has been really enhanced. So depending on where you stand, of course, the corona could come at like something very bad. But if you look at it from as a pandemic, something that is compared to the war in Syria, compared to the war, something happening somewhere else, this is something that has brought us together as a global community. This is something that has given each member of the family a responsibility. So in as much as we are a global family, we have the responsibility to wash our hands, sanitize. I've never seen me eat oranges and garlic like this before. So so we're just part of something big. The global solidarity, it cannot be undermined. We have done a lot. So depending on how you look at it as a peace, if you look at it from a peace expert perspective, then it has promoted positive peace. I don't think right now somebody can just go and blow up a city with a bomb, maybe because then nobody's there. So yeah, I don't know if that really puts it into perspective. And then of course the issue is are close. Parents get to know their kids. Parents get to spend more time with their children. Families get together and spend more time together. So if you talk of corona in the aspect of peace, then it has also either exposed the areas that promote negative peace, but again, it has also promoted some sense of positive peace.
Yes. Just another. Sorry, too many things. Huh? So one of the targets of 16 is like protect.
Come on, unmute, Paris.
Paris, you're muted. We can't hear you.
Unmute.
Okay, sorry. I was saying one of the targets within the SDG 16, if I recall very well, is that protection of children and from abuse and exploitation is one which is key. And if you think about it in relation to what is happening now, I feel like we will have a crisis after the COVID-19, an education crisis, because with regards to the statistics, we see the number of children who are getting pregnant at the time that they are locked at home. It means we are going backwards. If you think about it, how many schools will accept these kids who've given birth to come back into school with assuming that these people will have, let me call it a domino effect on those others that have not yet engaged in early sex as of the time, because I know several schools do not even allow someone who's pregnant to be in school with the others that are not pregnant. So I feel like the peace that we are talking about being paramount and important will be affected at some point, and we will have a student war against the institutions, which are the educational institutions that are supposed to build them mentally and in all those aspects, because they will not be in a position to accommodate these same kids that they purport to foster them forward and push them to be the leaders of tomorrow who are empowered and with education. So I don't know what's your take on that or contribution on it.
Okay.
That's on goal number 16.2.
I'm willing to explain that. I'm here.
Sorry.
I want to.
No, Deborah, just
a minute.
Just a minute, please. Oh, I just want us to agree, because I can see when we check at our time, it's actually almost time for breakout. So I was just requesting Paris, if it's okay, and those others who addressed their hands, if we can tackle the issues towards the end, because we have a session for question and answer. Is
All
that
right.
Joe, is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay with me.
It's okay with me.
You finalize, Joe, then we go to the breakout sessions. Then we shall answer the question towards at the end of the session.
All right. So you mean I finalized, right?
Yeah, because you hadn't finished whatever you were discussing before we lost you.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I was just looking at the 8 pillars of peace. I think I was almost done in a way. I felt I was done.
So
what was remaining?
You're good to go to the breakouts?
Maybe just to wind up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so just as a summary, I talked about well-functioning government, and then there is the equitable distribution of resources. Number 2, free flow of information, which is very imperative. Just in case we are going for the breakouts, we can choose to see how are these pillars being affected or influenced. Then there is the sound business environment, just making sure that the systems of production can balance the system of consumption, and that happens when we have a good environment to do business. Then, of course, the high level of human capital, which I think Christine has talked at length in terms of the value of education. And then acceptance of the rights of others, human rights, and then the low levels of corruption. The low levels of corruption becomes number 7. And the last one is good relations, of course, with the neighbors. So I think those 8 pillars, once we understand how those 8 pillars play, how they come, how they interrelate, then we'll be able to talk more boldly about the processes of peace. And according to the United Nations, what they try to do as much as possible to make sure that peace building architectures are promoted is they try, of course, there is the Peace Building Commission, there's the Peace Building Fund, and there's the Peace Building Support Office, which I think tries to bring all these peace aspects into place. I just don't know how, maybe Christine would have touched on it, on how especially the issue of children and not going to school, and then how the schools are promoting the processes of peace building, because I know that the schools really promote a lot of peace education, but then there's also peace building. So maybe from my point of view, where I stand, I could just talk about the peace building strategies, because then according to the United Nations strategic, the peace building strategic entry points, is always to try and make sure that they avoid the relapse, because then relapse is what is really common in Africa, that after 5 years or 10 years of elections, then there's a relapse back to something. When there is change of guard, there is relapse to something. We've seen what happens in Guinea, then the people relapse back to conflict. So apart from peace, avoiding relapse, there is protecting peacekeeping investments. And the peacekeeping investments are like the AMISOM, and we have some in Liberia, Sierra Leone. When we protect the peacekeeping investments, then we are able to be sure that we are able to sustain some meaningful peace as well. Then, of course, quick state building, that has been a good example has been in Yemen. In Yemen, there's always like a quick state building. You quickly bring the people together so that they can bring a functional state. And then, of course, the supporting leadership, and then accompaniment, like staying on course for peace, like Burundi. I think Burundi is on the accompaniment process, where we are having a process where we make sure that they stay on course. Now, when you talk about conflict, then we know that women and children are the ultimate victims, because one, there is the family rupture. I'm very sure even now, as we have children at home, husbands and wives are staying at home, women experience a lot of that, because then there's the family ruptures during any form of conflict. The family can't stay together when a husband and wife are in disagreement, the kids are in disarray, everything else. So the family really ruptures, even in times of conflict, really intense conflict. Then, of course, there is a change of roles. It's been said that 33 of households in 2010, 33% of households in Rwanda were headed by women, because the men were killed in war. So then those change of households, they try to bring pressure. So that's what really happens. Apart from just the family rupturing, conflict and lack of peace can cause the household roles to change. And in Nepal, I don't know which year they went to war. I think in around 2011 in Nepal, the 28% of the households were led by women. So you can see how the change of roles really affects. Then there is the sexual violence. For example, DRC Congo, is that Sylvester Ayoni? All right, I hope we are not boring. So in DRC Congo, we saw around 200,000 women and children were raped over a decade of war. And in Sierra Leone, we had 64,000 incidents of war raids, war-related sexual violence. And so if you look at it in a way, there is quite a bit of problems when we talk about peace, and the reason why we must support the process of peace. So finally, before you go to break, before I ask maybe Christine to give her final take before you go for breakout, I would also remind young people that even as we are taking part in the resolution 2250 on participating on peace and global peace, let's not forget the 7-point action plan, which is, we call it 7PAP. The 7 action plan, point action plan in things that we can also participate in as young people. We don't have to be involved in the bigger system, but we can try and make sure we are doing something towards the 7 PAPs. And I think one of them is conflict resolution. We try to participate in the processes of conflict resolution and try to encourage participation of young people in policy formulations, especially policies that are leading towards conflict resolution. And then number 2, of course, is post-conflict planning. So we've got conflict, and now we are going through a process where we just come out of a conflict. How are we helping? How are we participating in the planning processes of any post-conflict scenario? Then the third one is post-conflict financing, which I think is majorly to like help countries come up again. So again, you can take part in that as young people by making sure that we are engaged in post-conflict funding, in the sense that we are engaged in ideas and innovations that can bring more money, and then of course can build back our communities. And this is very true of Rwanda. We've seen Rwanda pick up very fast on conflict planning and post-conflict financing. Then there is what we call the civilian capacity, and the civilian capacity is we are building the capacity of civilians, we're building the capacity of the members of our societies and communities to be able to kind of eradicate the conflict, the trigger points for conflict. And maybe it is just abuse, gender, maybe it is finances, maybe it is all these things we've talked about, maybe it is dysfunctional governments, maybe it is election problems, we don't see elections, we got a lot of rigging, and then maybe it is information is not flowing, or the something. But what happens is, like, we have to engage ourselves in civilian capacity, building the capacity of our fellow young people around us. And then participation in public life is also is the fifth point there, that we have to be able to engage in public life. We just don't have to wait and then we complain. As young people, we have to engage, we have to go out there. And I'm very happy what young people are doing through Education for Sustainable Development. You can see that they're coming forth, they believe in themselves, they believe in their ideas, they're bringing their ideas into life. And that's really, it gives you some sense of really, I want to promote peace because I'm engaged in my public life. And the sixth one, I think, is the rule of law, that whenever we are, we should promote the rule of law and adhere to it. And the last one is economic recovery, which is very, very important for us. So as we go into as we check into the paradigm shift, I think it would be very important for us to look at all those seven points for action. And then also let's look at the 8 pillars of peace and see that we are participating in them in a way that promotes peace. Maybe Christine, are you there? If you can, maybe if you have something to rewind up with your presentation or area of, is Christine there?
Yeah.
Yes,
Thank
Christine,
you very
maybe
much, Joe.
In that line of education, and now that children are home, the teenage pregnancies, and how do we make sure that we are not losing the gains that we've had? What we're doing? Yeah.
In actual sense, we are so worried, because now you start wondering, does it mean parents are not being responsible of their own children? How come our children are getting pregnant at such kind of a rate? It is really worrying. But we hope through such forums like what we are having today, if we can be able to reach out to the youth so that we come out as mentors. When you go out, when you go home, try to bring together young people that you can talk to, young people that you can mentor, you can coach at an individual level. At least engage yourself, do something to make a difference. It is possible that if each one of us, the 32 of us that are in this room today, we went out and picked like 10 people, 10 young people around us, or 10 children around us, and start engaging them in productive activities like gardening, maybe rearing chicken, teaching them how they can take care of themselves, then we will be able to help these children, even if they are not able to learn virtually, to feel like something is happening in their lives. Because at the moment, schools that have gone through the program of Education for Sustainable Development, the reports that we are getting from their teachers are really very encouraging, because the learners are able to post to their teachers things that they are engaging in. Others are now even harvesting vegetables, they are selling, they are making money, and in the process they are learning that life is not just about books. Life has to be experiential. And therefore, to promote peace, to finish, this is my parting shot. It is not about what we are discussing so much right now that will matter. It's not about what is going to the head. Let us not get excited that Joe has given us a lot of information about peace. What is important is to develop some passion for what we are learning, bring it to the heart, appreciate the fact that you need to participate in the process of promoting peace in our own country. It starts with me, it starts with you. And then if you really appreciate that this is a noble thing that we need to do together, then it will be easy for you to start doing something. For example, what I do every morning, I have picked about 14 young people, my neighbors' children. At 6, we leave. We go for morning teas. As we are walking, as we are running, we get to a point where we now sit and talk to one another. At some point, we are able to construct hanging gardens together. We are able to do some community activities together, like cleaning the outside of a hospital, something like that. In the process of them getting engaged like that, they kind of feel like it's not a waste that we are at home. At least there is something happening. So the head, the heart, and the hands. Learn it today, bring it to the heart, and take it down to the hands. Action, action, action will bring us to the level to where we want to be in the process of promoting peace in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine, for that parting shot. Thank you, Joe. It's time for us to go to the breakout sessions. The sessions will take, from the program, it's 10 minutes, though we are slightly behind the program. We'll have 4 discussion rooms, or 4 topics to be discussed. The first one will be on policy in Africa. The second one will be youth engagement in peace in Africa. The third will be role of governance in peace and security. The fourth, what role does the private sector have in rolling peace issues in Africa? So you'll find yourself in one of those discussion rooms.
I'd love to type that here on the screen. So please, may you just say it again?
Sorry?
Just love to chat that so that people can see them in the chat room. So that they.
Yeah, it's also in the chat room, and there are also quite a number of raised hands. If that is okay, you can also post your questions on the chat box as well, so that we can address them later. I think it's time to go to the breakout sessions. James will play a role in hosting that. And also kindly discuss as a group and have one of you present after that, after the breakout sessions.
Thank you. See you there.
Accept the breakout room that will be requested to join.
Makeup.
So back to you, Anne. Anne, you can take over.
Hope you are all, yeah, I can see we are all back now. I think we can just take a very few minutes to discuss the deliberations we've had in our various discussions. Can you hear me?
Yes, and we can get you. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Okay,
we
yes.
can hear you.
Yes,
Anne.
we do.
We take just a few minutes to
Yes,
present.
we can get you.
Okay. Fine, let's just take a few minutes to discuss whatever we've discussed from our breakout sessions. We'll start with breakout session 1, the one who are working on policy in Africa. Are we ready to present? Group 1?
Maybe for those who may have forgotten group numbers.
Hello.
The ones who are working on policy in Africa.
Okay, I think there's a problem. Some groups discuss the four questions.
Oh, the groups who did all the 4?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And some groups who are not able to discuss at all.
Why Salim? What was happening? I think I'm interested, Madam Moderator. I'm interested on those who are not able to discuss anything. Maybe something good was happening. There was fun there.
No, I think there were technical difficulties from the members.
Which session was that? Which breakout session?
The first one.
The first one. Okay then. Let's go to the second one.
Direction.
The one who are working on youth engagement in peace. I think, Kim, you're here. You can take us through that.
So, interruption.
Okay.
Sorry
So
for interruption.
Yes.
Hello. Sorry for interruption.
Yeah, we can hear you. Please go ahead. Who's that?
Okay.
We can't hear Kim.
He's not talking yet.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Yes,
can
now.
now hear you.
Okay, so for us, we were discussing the youth engagement, right? Youth engagement in Africa, something like that. And our first question was why and how are the youth engaged? And we came to the conclusion that the youth are not sufficiently engaged in decision-making in Africa. And the reasons for that were, first of all, our education system is failing us. We are not taught sufficiently about what to do, how to do it. As in, our 844 system is so insufficient. All we learn is we don't learn like everything about the real world. We just learn about books and books and books. And the second reason was, we are undermined. The youths are so undermined, even in Kenya. First of all, in Kenya, the youths are undermined, and we are undermined because the few that get the opportunity, most of them always perform below expectation, and that leads to that leads to them undermining us. For example, there was this position, I don't know what position it was, but Uhuru Kenyatta, he appointed a 92-year-old man for a position. Yet there are youths all over the country. We were wondering, as in, how can that happen? The third is, the expectations of us are too high. For example, we have stayed in lockdown for 4 months. Someone is expecting you to have started a business and be getting money from your own bed. They expect you to be going somewhere, yet you don't have the money, you don't have the experience, you have nothing. So the expectations are so high. That's why we are not even engaged. And then we discussed the advantages of engaging youth in decision-making or in peacekeeping efforts. And the first advantage was we have refined ideas. The youths of today, they're always on their feet thinking progressively compared to the ideas of the older generations. So the youths can bring fresh ideas to the table. That's one advantage. The second advantage is we are the majority. if one youth can inspire his whole generation or his friends, and they inspire their friends, they can really get something going, because every country in the world, probably, okay, not every country, but most of them, the majority of the demographic of the population is youths, and that is something, it can really help them going forward. And the third point was youths. We have the ability to inspire and influence others. The example was given of Greta Thunberg. She's a climate activist. She has managed to inspire millions of people around the world, and even now she's being invited to make speeches in international conferences about climate change and stuff like that. Then we discussed the risks and the drawbacks of having youth engaged in decision making. And the first one was there is risk. For youths, like for example, for me, if I was to accept a position in the government, most of the already established faces will come for me, and I don't have the knowledge or the resources to protect myself. If, for example, if I'm supposed to go against them, I need to back myself up with, for example, security and finances, so that they may not, like, I might even get killed and something like that. Yeah. And the second point is lack of experience. Whilst youth, most of us are 20 to 30, like that's our age, and during that age, at least 20 years we have spent in school, and those 5 years are in university, so we don't have the experience to know how to handle things efficiently, and we still need guidance to be taught these things. Yeah, so that's what we discussed. Paris, do you have something else to add?
Yeah, so there's an idea that came to my head when you were presenting, and it hit me that in most cases, when it comes to conflict resolution and policy in Africa and peacekeeping with the youths are they're seen as a conceptual category, which is othered in the conflict, because most times we are seen as potentially dangerous subjects, and the policy approaches often regard us as a problem, because often you find the male youths of the age group, probably 16 to 30, are observed as the main protagonist of the criminal and political kind of violence. So you find even by that stereotyping, we're not given the accolades that we're supposed to get. So it already makes it hard for us to go into the engagement in peace within our what do we call it, geographical positioning. And then you also find, other than the dangerous assumptions about the youth, you find that with the young people being seen and being what do you call it? Being put into, like, we are demonized in our sense. We're already demonized. We are seen as these people who are greedy and would only want to get to these positions because of the money. No one wants to give us the accolades that you have earned this position in peacekeeping. And as we were talking also, we talked about something like South Africa and Rwanda. If you look at the local peacekeeping missions that were done in those countries after the apartheid, and on this other side, the genocide, you find that even the young and the old were reconciled through those small arbitrations that were done, the traditional methods, which our education system fails to acknowledge and fails to teach the young people. So we fail to have the wisdom that was there in the past. So that was something else I would have added. But you've done a great job, Kim, presenting the group.
Thank you so much.
That was good too.
Thank you, Kim and Paris, for that. I can see we are running behind time. Just a kind request, because we started 10 minutes late, we started at 5:10. I'm kindly requesting we finish at 7:10. So whoever is presenting, please try to fasten the presentation. Our breakout session number 3, the ones who are working on role of governance in peace and security. Are you ready to present?
Yes, we are ready to present. Good evening.
Okay, good evening. Please go ahead.
Okay. So our question was the role of governance in promoting peace and security. And as we all know, governance is the action or manner of governing a state, how the leaders are governing the state. So the first thing that we looked at is that education has got an impact on how the country is going to be governed. We looked at it when people are learned, you'll find that most people have got an understanding. It holds peace and it also promotes it promotes independence in the functioning of all other sectors in the country. Then it also promotes sustainable and development. Governance also has to do with leadership. In our discussion, we concluded that the leaders that are governing us have got an impact. When you look at our African setup, you realize that we're coming from multitudes of ethnic groups. So depending on how our leaders, they are instituting certain information in our minds, sometimes we are fighting against ourselves, tribe against another tribe or within the tribal cause. We also looked at the tragic triangle where we have the observer on the top part, the victim, and the perpetrators at the bottom. So depending on how the people leading us are doing things, you'll find that the observers. Hello? Can you still
Yes,
get
go
me?
ahead.
Please go ahead.
Okay, so you find that the observers at the top are observing what is happening at the bottom. So you find that depending on what's happening to the victims and the perpetrators, it's like we are creating a whole new layer and a whole new generation of what they're going to take up. So, and then we also, governance and promoting peace and security, also looked at the 5 P's, like what type of leaders do we have in power? Are they power hungry people? Are they concerned about how much property they are going to consume by the time they leave their offices, the prestige, popularity, and also pomposity? So if you find that you have a leader that is more concerned on such things, definitely we are not going to have good governance. That's why you now find we're not going to have peace and security. That's now you now find most leaders want to take long in offices. And we all know that longevity in offices is not a solution to solving problems. That is why we now have certain things coming that threat the peace and security, like there's no freedom of speech, like what's happening in Zimbabwe currently. So I think ours was very short because it's almost self-explanatory, and also greed would lead to not promoting peace and security. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Group 2, Group 3.
Yes, okay. I don't know if Dr. Christine has got anything to add to.
Not really. You've exhausted all that we discussed. That is very good, Veronica.
Okay.
Okay. Let's now go to the final breakout session. Group 4. Breakout session number 4.
Okay, Group 4. I'm Gitari Judith. We were looking at the role of private sectors in peace promotion. So we looked at the role of NGOs promoting peace, and there's one cut across within the society that we're living in, either the youth or within our country. There's a lot of private sectors also mentoring peace among youth. We also have some of the private sectors having financial support, that means resources, and this one enables support or youth in engaging in some of the role of peace management within the society. There is also empowerment of youth by some of the private sectors that we have in our countries. They also play a major role in inculcating values and skills among the youth and also within the society. Not forgetting also we have sectors like the church that also have youth and the youth leaders that also enable in promotion of peace. I think that that is all we had in our group. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. There's a group that did all the 4. Are they able to present on number 1? Because we seem to have lost that. The ones who had a technical.
Yes, it is still us. So Gitari can still continue.
Okay, please.
Yeah. The first one was on policy. And we noted that the policies are there, but we have the problem with implementation of peace. There's also good policies in our countries, but goodwill is lacking among our people. Then we have the policy framework and peace. And we noted that like in Africa, we have the highest number of peace agreements, but now it's like the biggest problem in that Africa is like a dumping place for some of these peace policies that we have. And we noted, for example, in Africa, we have around 351 peace agreements, and out of these, 81% are intra-state. And meaning that no interference with other countries, meaning that there is no peace. There's also good policy in Africa, but at times they end up contradicting with other policies and also ending up contradicting peace within the country. We also have policies are there, yes, but sometimes we are quick to rush signing up some of them without even the know-how on how they are applicable. We had also contributed to point number 2, youth engagement in peace. Some of those points were discussed at length, but we also looked at some of the youth may engage in negative way, like they get in a position, but then they get corrupt because they want to become rich fast. There's also lack of goodwill among those in the system. And I think this one comes in, for example, because some of the youth lack experience and they don't have the skills. So they are not ready to help them. They come up in those systems that already they are in. So there was a question that was posed. What about the countries that have dictatorial governments? How are the youth are supposed to go about it? I think that one, Joe will assist on that. We also discussed about internal peace and external peace that has to start among the youth from the low level. That means within the society, among the youth themselves, then come up again to the higher system. We also had some point on point number 3, although majority have been discussed. We also noted that the role of in governance in promoting peace, we looked at a distribution of resources. So lack of equitable distribution of resources may bring about competition among ourselves. And that is why you find that that one may somehow affect peace within our countries. Then we have also noted that we can have maybe an education system bringing about peace, like peace corners, peace clubs within our school. And this one is going to promote peace and security in our countries. We also had youth in leadership, which can also assist promoting peace and security within the government. And that is all we had in our group. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just to add something, Anne, from our side again, we just with the number of young people we have in Africa, over 60% of the population, if then we don't engage them either in practical work, in positive, we tap the positive energy to something, then we should prepare for the worst. So it's a challenge that all of us should do something to engage young people everywhere, wherever you are in the village or anywhere. And that was part of our discussion. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Just to add on to what has been said.
Please go ahead.
when it comes to engaging young people, I think it also has to do with the people who are at the topmost. Because believe you me, as the young people, we do know what we want. We know the skills that we can put across. We know the human capacity that we possess. But it has to do with the people that are leading us. Are they willing to engage us? Are they willing to sit down and listen to the ideas that can be put across? I think that's one thing that really, really lacks.
Okay, thank you, Veronica. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can get you.
Okay. I think we can proceed. I think we finalized on the presentation from the breakout sessions. So we had quite a number of questions. We'll try to rush through because of time. Then after the question and answer session, I'll take the session back to Joe to wind up. But before we wind up, just remember that this is just a start. This is day one. Kindly join us tomorrow from 10 to 1. And we'll hope by tomorrow we'll see many of you on board and we'll be able to discuss. The topic for tomorrow will be shared briefly on our screen, so you'll be able to see. The first question that I think Christine and Joe can address, or any of them, is, the first question is, how do we maintain peace and free flow of information in any African nation? How do we maintain peace and free flow of information in any African nation? Joe? I'll
repeat the question. How do we maintain peace?
How do we maintain peace and free flow of information in any African nation? How do we maintain peace?
How do we maintain
and free flow of information in any African nation? How do you maintain peace and free flow of information?
So it has to begin with the rule of law. If everybody really followed what we have in our law, then it is possible to maintain peace. We have very good policies that we have not been able to implement everything that we've written in those particular policies. So it all goes back to our leaders, governance. If our leaders were authentic and they were ready to really bring out that aspect of maintaining peace and having freedom of expression, freedom of speech, and letting people live freely and be able to engage from within whatever is within their hearts, considering that everybody, as I said, everybody has a value, everybody is valuable. So if we could embrace one another and live harmoniously with one another, then it is possible to do all that that has been asked.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Christine, for the input. I hope whoever asked the question has been answered. The second question is, how do we maintain peace as we still adhere to our culture as a country? I think the person meant that different communities have different cultures. So how do they still maintain peace while still adhering to their different cultures?
Maybe to contribute that is to, one is to understand that we are all diverse. We come from different religions, different environments, different backgrounds. And it is just by understanding that we are all different and accepting each other, regardless of where you come from, that we are able to live together. And again, even to those, because sometimes I remember what Dr. Christine had said about education brings peace in terms of hope. But what about the people who are not employed? Because my questions about this is, there are people who are not employed and they feel they can't participate because they feel unable. So maybe I would still ask a question on that to be guided, as we still say, yes, we embrace diversity and live together. Christine.
You know, sorry, let me just continue with what you've just asked. When we come to people who are not employed, you know, now that takes us back to what I said. What brings disorder in the society? It is greed. The leaders that we have, for example, in the African continent, the leaders that we have are very greedy. And what is making them greedy? Because of the 5 P's. I explained the 5 P's in our breakaway room. People are just out looking for power. People are out looking for property. They want to be seen that they're the ones who are owning the whole country. People are looking for prestige. They want the big cars, and yet other people don't even have food on their tables. People are looking for popularity. People are looking for pomposity. Who is nani anaongea sana mbwembwe mbwembwe? You know, that is why governance is key when it comes to even employment aspects. If we really had good governance in Africa, for example, then we couldn't be talking about people lacking jobs. We could have taken the right approach towards sustainable living. We couldn't even be talking about, oh, I want this job. No, 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 no. Everybody could be engaged. So if we really want peace, then governance is key. The kind of leaders that we are bringing up is really key. We need to think about governance.
Okay. Thank you for that. James, you actually went to my next question on how to do with the unemployed people, but thank you. You've answered. Now, the final question is, how far has COVID affected promotion and maintenance of peace in Africa? How far has COVID affected promotion and maintenance of peace in Africa?
Is that for me?
Yes, you can take it up, Joy, if you can. Or anyone can respond to it.
I thought I had explained that. So in my previous preamble, I think it depends on what angle we are looking at. But in terms of, just like I had mentioned the 5 things, I think that would be my take. Again, I don't want to repeat, but unless it is on very specific angle, because then everything of the magnitude of COVID has its benefits and its demerits. On personal health, of course, it has not, because it has also promoted a lot of mental health. So we don't have internal peace as we should. But I think in terms of external peace, then it has also brought us together. It has also increased our personal responsibility for action and accountability with our diet and even the actions we take in terms of adhering to the health guidelines. So that would really be a dynamic question in terms of what angle are we taking with it.
Yeah, allow me to add something small. Yeah, in that regard,
yes.
Yeah, of course, we want to think positively, even when we are talking about COVID-19. But socially, it is really challenging because human beings are social beings. When we want to feel loved, we want to be very close to our loved ones. Now, COVID-19 has denied us that opportunity to feel close to others. Some people have even decided not to move closer to anybody from Nairobi. You go to the village and people are running away from you. You know, it is really a challenge. And then when you go to countries like South Korea, some people have been demonized, as in they're the ones who brought COVID to their country. Like we have this leader of some church called Skoji something. There is a lot of war going on right now in South Korea because the members of his church are being looked down upon like they are the ones who brought in the spread of COVID in South Korea. And this guy is actually the initiator of world peace in an institution called HWPL. And now you start wondering now what is happening. COVID-19 should be uniting us more than breaking us apart. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christine. James. Is James there? So maybe if possible, they can be able to share the poster for tomorrow.
For tomorrow, eh?
Yes. You can
Okay, thank you so much. Come in shortly, and remember it starts from 10 a.m. East African time. So let's see, it's coming over.
I'll now hand over
So
the
there
session.
we go.
Thank you so much, James. I hope everyone can be able to see. I'll now hand over the session to Joe, just to sum it up and give the closing remarks, and to thank each one and every one of us for joining. Joe, please.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I'm in the village, so it's really dark now. You won't be able to see me. There it is. Yeah, and I'm telling you, like Christine is saying, everybody here thinks everybody from Nairobi has brought the coronavirus. We're trying to brave up. We're trying to make sure they know that, no, we didn't bring the coronavirus. And tomorrow we're starting a training as well. We'll be starting a training this week in our place in Ahero. We've been doing what we call the SDGs Mashinani. And SDGs Mashinani is just an initiative that tries to bring individuals together in groups, networks that are interested to see that we young people participate actively through innovation in issues that will lead to sustainable development. So down here, I'll be here for a week trying to see what young people are doing, how young people are participating. I'll be talking about how they can scale up their participation, what SDGs are, how do they know their goals, and how do they engage their communities. So I'll be looking at bamboo planting along rivers just to see the sustainability of ecosystems. And so the peace aspect is very important for people in the village and in the communities. And I just want to say thank you so much, guys, for joining. It's just been so amazing. I can't wait for tomorrow. Actually, tomorrow I've just set myself, I'll be there. So thank you again. God bless you so much, Christine, for being part of today's presentation. It was such an honor to have you. And it's always an honor to have you on board. Thank you so much, Anne, for following up and for making sure that this is happened smoothly. Thank you for the team behind the scenes. You guys have made it very possible. Today, I enjoyed the breakout session. It was very nice. And thank you for everyone that I've met today. I look forward to meeting you tomorrow. And please just drop in. Christine and I are part of what we call the Education for Sustainable Development. We are running a hub there at Parklands and at the Kenya Education Management Institute. It's an open place for you guys. If you feel free, come in, help us think how we can make sure that our schools are model centers for sustainability. Come and give us ideas, your innovations. We'll prototype them on the compound, and then maybe inspire some young people to take it up and see how we can change Africa. I'm a firm believer in the possibilities of the African dream. I'm a big believer in the Africa that we want. And I'm a big believer in the practical engagement in making sure that the Africa we want happens. So I'm a community person, I'm a grassroots person. I love to get my hands dirty because I've already got my head full. And I love to inspire my heart with the values that make it sustainable. So thank you so much. I hope we'll meet again tomorrow. Please tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to join. And tomorrow it's going to be heated. I can't wait to do this again on the governance and politics one. So it will be awesome. Tomorrow we're talking about youth and volunteerism. And I want you to be thinking keenly on innovative volunteerism, just seeing how you can volunteer innovatively, because that's the Africa we want. Africa that is built by the values of Africans and the passion and the sweat of Africans, not the African that was built by the blood of Africans. So join me and let's make sure that Africa is a great place to be. Otherwise, thank you so much. Received lots of greetings from the village guys. They've just come from a football thing, and we're trying to use football for peace just to see how young people can do it here. At least they're still allowed to play football despite Corona. So it's a nice thing. I think back in the village, life is just moving on. Bye. I can talk over and over and over. I love you guys, and God bless you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
My boys have
Yes.
said hi.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And that was really good moderation.
Thank you,
For us
Faris.
here behind the button, IT, we are very happy. To those guys who are joining us at the last minute, we have it tomorrow. See you tomorrow in the morning, 10 a.m. 10 a.m. East African time.
Thank you.
Is it possible for you guys just to share the link and the, what do you call it, and the password?
Yeah.
As compared to just giving us, because it's crazy for me trying to invite my friends with the poster. It's difficult.
Leonel Randa, is that you?
Joe, are you talking to James or are you talking to who or who?
No, I was wondering, Lionel, if that was him.
All right, so this is just a poster to brand it, but we have the link in the Zoom. When you're sharing to your friends, share the poster together with the Zoom link. That is a perfect and the awesome style. Good night.
Okay. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye. James.
So by the way, sorry, as you go,